happy. Now, as the questions regarding racism today, I didn't have any or very many. I met you by asking a question of another poster, Anand, about something he said because I needed a little clarification. And then the clarification that came from that, I needed more clarification. I'm not good with subtleties. It's a weakness of mine. I tend to need things more detailed and explained. You kicked in, a couple of other people kicked in. We had some interesting and fun debates. Yours was constructive, mine was constructive. I admire you for that. I believe that there's a constructive and destructive way to approach everything, and I respect your approach. But my questions have developed out of what you said. One is you disagreed with Glenn. I'd love to see you having a faux debate with Glenn, with you questioning him on the questions or the points that you disagree. I'm not sure I really relate to what you talk about the racial hierarchy. I think you need to clarify that. I think I'm here. I'm a more. I'd rather listen to you. I don't think I have a lot to offer you or anyone else. I'm just an ordinary guy.
All right. Well, I appreciate you as an ordinary guy deciding to put yourself out here like that. I think that that's admirable. I agree with your summation of our communication. I appreciate it. Like, that's what this show is all about. It's just about communication, and that's really it. And I hope that I can model the kind of communication that I saw lacking in the race context. I think that Glenn oftentimes does a good job modeling the kind of communication that I'd like to see more of in the race context, even though I have a lot of disagreements with what Glenn says. And I think that's a good place for us to start, is kind of where do I kind of diverge from Glenn's perspectives? And I don't know, there's a lot there, Mark.
I'm sure.
So, I mean, I don't know. Let me see if I can paint it with a wide brush, and then maybe you can ask some questions to help me drill down. Okay. But
Good start.
All right. So I first kind of became aware of Glenn via his The Glenn Show, which he has been running for several years, having discussions on race. And I kind of perceived Glenn's conception of race issues to be very much in the conservative wheelhouse of talking points that I've heard about race through the years. He has a very heavy focus on self-determination, a very heavy focus on, excellence and striving for excellence in the Black community. And he's very much not shy about expressing his disdains, particularly for Black folk who do not kind of live up to that ideal of excellence and what he believes to be what the community as a whole should be striving for: education, excellence, and professionalism. So those are kind of the things that I hear Glenn talk about. Now, Glenn always does acknowledge that issues with race still exist, but he does believe that those issues are mostly a thing of the past. And given my own personal and professional experiences, there was no way that I could accept his, conception that race is a thing of the past and that issues of race are somehow not influencing racialized Black people's outcomes very much in the present day. I think there's far too much evidence to the contrary, not only in my own personal and professional life, as I said, but with other racialized Black people in my circle, with other things that I've observed, with legal cases that I've interrogated, with investigations into religions that deal with the issue of race, presently, I mean. and with medical experiences that I've had and other people I know have had who are racialized as Black. I've traveled all across the country. I've been to pretty much every state almost, and talked to people from every state. I've worked in multiple states. I've lived in multiple states. And so I feel like I have a pretty good sense of the country as a whole. And you may not be aware of this. I think you did watch my poem that I wrote when I started the Contraband Wagon. I wrote a poem called Contraband of Race War. Maybe it wasn't you. It was somebody in the Discord who had watched it. And
Wasn't me.
it was just kind of me talking about my own evolution of race consciousness, right? And it starts when I was 6 years old in elementary school in the hallway when one of my classmates came up to me and he was like, "Hey, why don't you act Black?" And I was kind of like taken aback a little bit. At this time, my education about race was basically the civil rights movement. I knew about it. We had gone, my family and I, we went to the public library and checked out VHS tapes about Dr. King and about the civil rights movement. So I had a basic understanding of civil rights, at least. But the way it was kind of presented to me, not only in that media, but also by my family, was that it was a thing of the past. You know, these issues were something that were in the past and they're behind us now. And that is kind of, at 6 years old, that was my understanding that I had gleaned from the education I received thus far. So this question kind of took me aback because I was like, what does he mean by that? I don't even really understand what he means that I don't act Black. And so I asked him, I was like, what do you mean by that? So he starts listing these criterion. Well, he says, well, you get good grades. Well, you're not in a gang. Well, you don't curse. And he just starts listing all of these, in my mind at the time and still today, negative attributes that he had already associated to Blackness at 6 years old. And I was floored by that. I had almost a transcendental out-of-body experience, I would say, hearing him say this stuff, because I was coming to the realization that there's really no way that this stuff could be in the past, and this kid is telling me that I don't act Black because of these negative associations to Blackness. All of that was kind of seeping into my bones, if you will. And it was shocking for me as a young child who was just figuring this out in that moment. But I'm also a very curious person. I always have been. So I became very curious about the subject of race from that moment on. I'm now 40 years old, and in the subsequent decades, I took a lot of time and care to interrogate people's views about race, to learn about race through study, both independent study and formal college education study. I've always, and still to this day, have private and public conversations about the subject of race. And I am virtually always the instigator of those conversations. So I've been actively and intentionally investigating the issue for quite a long period of time. And that is kind of the impetus of why I created the Contraband Wagon. Because I noted about 4 years ago now, the show will be 4 years strong in just a couple weeks. I just realized that there was a connectivity that was happening with the advent of technology. You and I are talking here. We're nowhere near each other. We're having direct conversation. We can see each other and have this conversation on race. I can talk to someone across an ocean instantly. I can travel to see that person within a day. So all of these advancements in travel and telecommunications, which I know that you're a telecommunications specialist, so I'm sure you know all about it. I recognize the value that could have in terms of progressing the conversation on race, which I found to be stagnant and stale, I guess you could say. The media that I was consuming via social media, via YouTube, via all of these platforms, I didn't really see anything representative of my own experience having done that intentional interrogation that I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to create something that I thought represented the views that I hold, and I also wanted a space for people to be able to perceive people having the conversation in a way that wasn't hostile, that was not aggressive, that was not overly emotional, so that they could really take in some of the information and perhaps expand their own perception of the issues of race. So that is kind of my little storyline of how I created this and what I'm doing here. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.